welcome everyone. We are excited to be here like every Thursday for this weekly update about the HEALEY ALS Platform Trial. Today I'm joined by Jen, our assistant, Alison, our patient navigator, and Eduardo Locatelli, our physician investigator and principal investigator at the Holy Cross site in Florida. And so we are so excited to have a SciPI join us to tell us more about his experience and tell us more about what's going on at his site. So thank you again to everyone for joining. As always, we love seeing people who join us and follow us every week, as well as we love seeing new names as well on the participant list. So with that, why don't we move to the next slide? And it's really a pleasure to introduce Dr. Eduardo Locatelli from the Phil Smith Neuroscience Institute at Holy Cross Hospital in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He's the platform trial site investigator, really doing amazing work with our patients in his area. So Eduardo, would you like to introduce your team?
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you for inviting me. It's always an honor to continue to work with Mass General and everything you guys do. So happy to be participant on the platform trial, a very exciting protocol for the community here in South Florida. And we are in the, a little bit north of downtown Lauderdale in Florida, at Holy Cross Hospital, and the Phil Smith Neuroscience Institute, as you mentioned. We're pleased to say that our site has a ground floor independent entrance, which is very convenient. The patients love because you have very easy access with parking right at the door and no elevators. And that is being very welcome for them to come. We are excited because there's a lot of interest in the study. Patients are loving coming to participate. As you may mention, we have 31 people that we screen. There's about 7 that have screen failures, mostly because of vital capacities. But we have enrolled about 24 of them. 4 of them still have not received drug, but so we developed one experience, and I think it's about to be 8 months since we started enrollment. We gained experience on the study and the different drugs. We just screen one for the D arm, the new added arm. So we're happy and looking forward to see how that goes as well. And as you, we talked just before we went live, here in Florida, we had a surprise, which is a lot of interest on the international population. We have about 9 patients that came from different countries. Actually from Peru, it was the first country that came, Argentina, Honduras, Panama. And so these patients had some relation with some family members, or they relocated and they were able to stay here for the duration of the study. So they're sort of relocated. They don't live here. They have somewhat the possibility to come in and stay locally for the trial. And so they enroll, they participate. As you may know, I'm fully bilingual, being myself from Argentina, so I can, language is not a barrier for us here in Florida. And very happy with that community. And we involve our international department to make sure to help them to get in here and move through the system a little bit better as compared to other patients. And they're local. So very happy with that and offering that opportunity to international patients as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And can you let us know if somebody's interested in enrolling at your site? I know you are one of our top enrolling sites. You have a large team, which is fantastic. Can you tell us more about how it works at your site?
So I'm the principal investigator. We have Dr. Gustavo Alameda, who's a very well known neurologist that ran the VA clinic for ALS here in the University in Miami. He joined us about 2 years ago. He's very much part of the study as well as a PI as well. And we have also 2 amazing research coordinators, Donna Mott and Natasha Ortiz. They are looking at the charts and receiving phone calls and information. And we have a nurse practitioner, Gabi Lopez, who is very much involved on the patient care, but also participating on the study. and Fiona Scarlett, which is the nurse that sort of started everything with me at the very beginning. And we have Lauren Table, which is the co-director of the center as well, and as many of the other part of the team that somewhat they get involved with the study as well, directly or some most of the time indirectly with them. The way to reach us is through the any way you want to reach us, whether it's a phone call, sending the email, visiting the website. But most of the time they do reach through the phone, and then we reach them very quickly and start asking questions to them and invite them to come to the clinic. Um, our phone number is 954-414-9750, if that helps. But usually, as after the people call us and they give us a message, the coordinators will make the phone call and establish all the questioning, and we'll call internationally if that's required as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. And the contact information is also on our website. In case you didn't have time to write it down, you can always find it on our website, and we'll show the link in a minute. So thank you, Eduardo. I mean, I know your site is really enrolling, one of the top enrollers, which is fantastic. And thank you for all your work also with international people that are interested. That's great. You also mentioned something about the VA, and I just want to take a moment to cover that topic. Our sites are not directly located at the VA, but as you mentioned, there are many physicians, including myself, that have at least a part-time appointment within the VA or Veterans Administration system. So if someone is seen at the VA hospital, there's always the possibility of connecting with the enrolling site. Even if we're not enrolling at the VA, the physician oftentimes has a relationship with an enrolling site. So for example, a veteran who's seen, by your colleague at the VA can easily, continue to be seen at the VA, but also connect with you for research. Did I summarize that correctly?
That's exactly right. We have good working relations with any site, but the VA is definitely the patients absolutely welcome, and then we collaborate with them, particularly when they need equipment. Then that's the easiest way to work with them. So our social workers will work with the VA to make sure that the coordination is always to the maximum.
Exactly, and that's the same thing we do in Boston, and I know many other cities have the same setup. So that, for example, for us, the Boston VA, they can follow the patients, but they can refer to us for research, and we have a great relationship. So again, I think also for veterans, it's great to leverage both resources, on the clinical side of the VA as well as the research with their local site. So I guess with that, we can move forward, and I just want to provide our now traditional update. And every week we share the names of the drugs that we are testing. At this time, we're testing 4 drugs in regimen A, B, C, and D. And as Eduardo was mentioning earlier, we started with 3, Zellucoplan, Verdiperstat, and CNMAU8, and then we added the 4th, Pridopidine, and more recently in January. And every regimen is followed by an optional open label extension. And I see Dr. Stukovic just joined. Thank you. And we just had a great conversation and learned a lot about Eduardo's work at Holy Cross. So now we're just giving the update so we can move on to the next slide. Enrollment updates as of today. So these are the numbers. We have over 400 people that have signed consent and over 300 people that are receiving investigational product. A few weeks ago, people on the call asked us how many people are on the open label extension. So that starts after the individual participant has completed the randomized portion of the trial. And as of right now, we have 75 people who have entered the open label extension. So first of all, I want to thank you for all your participation. It's really exceptional to see such a high level of interest, and it's fantastic. We are so excited. Obviously, the faster we enroll, the faster we can have the results for all these drugs. And last week, people asked us, what's the sort of distribution of enrollment across the different regimens. So regimens A, B, and C started at the same time, so they're roughly having the same enrollment. And then, as Dr. Locatelli was mentioning, D, as in David, was added more recently, so that's why they have fewer patients, and the numbers, if you click one more time, are here. So we have between 90 and 100 individuals in A, B, and C, and 21 in D. The only reason D is lower is just because it was recently added. In terms of the, if you're asking why A has just a fewer participants, that's just because there is a 2-week time after somebody starts in getting the vaccination. That's part of the procedure. But again, there's essentially no delay, just a slight offset because of that. So if we can go to the next slide, these are the 52 sites that are actively enrolling, and again, the contact information is on our website, so feel free to use the link. And Dr. Locatelli was mentioning the names of his team earlier, so the name of the primary coordinator is also available on this webpage. Next slide. So the Providence Brain and Spine Institute is the most recent addition to the group of sites that are enrolling, that's located in Oregon. And so right now, basically, we have essentially activated almost all 54 sites that were part of the first batch, and we continue to increase the number of our sites. We're still looking to activate to include more sites over the next few months. Next slide. And here, just a few links that can be helpful. In addition to the weekly webinars that we continue, we also have recorded webinars that explain the mechanism of action of each drug and the science behind each drug that's been tested in the trial. And if you can move to the next slide, I just want to share information about a separate webinar series hosted by Niels, and that's a great series to learn more about sort of the regulatory considerations and sort of practical considerations of drug development. So this is a series about science, FDA, ethics, and site considerations. The first ones were already done and recorded, so the recordings are available, and also you can look for the new ones that will be coming up soon. And this is in response to some of the questions that we've been receiving on this webinar. And the next slide. I want to highlight that Dr. Sukovich will also present a webinar to explain the overall pipeline, the clinical trial pipeline, so not just the platform trial, but also the field in general. So that's another great opportunity. And all of these are freely available, both in terms of registration and then recordings on the NILS website. And then next slide, we also have a dedicated webinar with updates on the CENTAR trial, a trial of AMX35 in ALS. So that's another webinar coming up. So lots of opportunities to engage with researchers and learn more about different trials. And then next slide. Please keep sending us webinar ideas. Again, as we have seen, we have continued to expand, and really many of these offerings are really in response to things that you mentioned and questions you asked. Next slide. And last but not least, I want to put here the information for you to contact Catherine and Allison, our amazing patient navigation team, always available to answer calls or your emails. And the link also shows some additional helpful information about eligibility. And with that, I think we can take your questions.
Thank you, Sabrina, and welcome, Eduardo. We have a couple of questions for Eduardo. I'll start with, can you talk about the prevalence of ALS among Latinos? The registry seems to indicate it's rare, but that's not this person's anecdotal experience. Compared to the population in South Florida, is ALS more or less prevalent in Latinos?
I really don't, I'm not sure I can tell you yes or no based on what we get over here. There's still a whole mix that we see. When I talk to my colleagues in the other countries, it seems to be the data. I'm not sure I trust the sources to compare or not. So I think it's about the same overall. When you look at the data specifically in Florida, it seems that we have a little bit more than the country, but I think it's just about the same. If I can give you my overall feeling. I don't know if that's your impression.
I agree with you. I think the data isn't that clear, but more work to be done on that. Another question for you, Eduardo, is whether your site is going to be participating in expanded access.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. And I know we are steps away from completion of paperwork. I would like to see that we start that very soon. But so I think we're weeks away, or maybe sooner than that, for the clean trial. So.
Since I was late, I'm sorry, I was on another Zoom call. I didn't get the chance to just say, and you maybe already said, what a fantastic site Holy Cross is, and a pleasure to work with. But they're really amazing for taking care of patients and for being enrolling people in trials. And if you live anywhere near Florida, that's the place to go. Even if you don't live near Florida.
I just want to give a disclosure. So as you may or may not know, we've been cheating because we have a relation with this center in Boston, called the Perpetual Hospital, and they support us from the beginning, and they really help us to get where we are. We enjoy not only the support for research, but the educational support that you guys give us on a regular basis, and the friendship that we have and the meetings that we have throughout the year. So we are what we are because of you guys, that's for sure.
Well, thank you. It's a nice partnership. There is a question, Sabrina, are we going to have the team from USF Tampa featured?
Oh, I would love to. Absolutely. Again, we're going around the country and we're just organizing the schedule with the different speakers. I really hope that we're going to have all sites on this. We want everyone to be featured and get to know and for you to have an opportunity to ask questions. Yeah.
There's a question also, Sabrina, maybe for you. Why is there no trial site outside the US?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you go outside the US, it's under a different regulatory agency, and so it's more like an operational and regulatory hurdle. I mean, there's additional work to be done. Having said that, I think it would be wonderful to expand. When we started to set up the platform trial, we got advice from other platform trials in cancer, and they advised us to start, to launch it and then expand later on, because it's hard to launch already in different countries. So essentially that's the strategy that we took, to start in the US, and hopefully we will be able to go elsewhere. And again, it's more an operational, a logistical thing. Not we would love to do it for sure.
Thank you. So Eduardo, there's a question. If you could talk about the research out of U of Miami and the correlation with BMAA and blue-green algae that's so prevalent in Florida waterways.
Yeah, so that has been an interest that we all thought it was the whole answer to things, but despite all that, I don't think we can talk too much. It's been overall a little frustrating that didn't further develop in some sort of a treatment or guidance on what that is. So I'm not aware that there's further research on that, but you're the expert. Maybe you can educate me a little bit more, but I'm not aware that there's anything specific.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it's been this idea that's been around for a long time and hasn't come to a conclusion. But I guess I would think that of all the possible risk factors, it's probably a little lower on the list. But all the studies so far have been a little inconclusive. Sabrina, there's a question. Are the 75 participants in open label part of the 316 that we list as receiving active or placebo?
Actually, that's a great point, and we may want to change the format. So thank you for somebody knows math better than me. I had to say, so essentially, no. So the 75 are the people that are on open label extension right now. So technically speaking, they're taking, so they are taking active drug for sure. So what I meant is, the 316 are the people that are either on active or placebo now or have completed that part. So perhaps we should make it more clear, because you're right. It's a good, it's basically the reason we the 316 are the people that are contributing to the final sample size. But some of them have already completed the placebo control trial, so we can make it more clear.
Okay.
Sabrina, can I ask a question? Do you know how many overall lumbar punctures you have collected?
That's a great question. I don't remember the exact number right now. It's optional, so so definitely, you know, it's we were estimating about the 20% of people would donate, or 30%, and even with that, it's super helpful, meaning that because the spinal fluid is so sort of precise, I guess, and you can do so many analyses on it. Even if we just have, you know, a third of the participants donate, that's enough for us to do some additional important analysis. So I think we're meeting the goal. I don't have the exact numbers right now.
We're about 1/3 of the patients,
Well done.
or maybe more. And we have about you know, we've done about 15. We send you on 15. So
that's fantastic. It's so important for understanding, you know, biomarkers and what the drugs might be doing. So thank you for doing this. And thank you to the people who are volunteering for that.
We have 100% on the DNA testing option so far. I think that's been the norm, maybe here at least. But about a third, maybe a little bit more, are going for lumbar punctures as well.
That's great.
Excellent. So there's two questions I might take. They're kind of related. One is there a way to lessen the burden on the neurologists at the sites, and would that help them enroll more people? And then related to that, someone's saying they have a friend who's trying to get into Healy. She's called multiple times and they keep putting her off. Is there some way to speed up the process? Call Allison or Catherine. So absolutely call Allison and Catherine. They've been able to find sites near you that have open, can get you in, and also they can call the site you're trying to do. So the two things are kind of related. So we are finding that some of our sites don't have enough staffing to get back to people quickly, which is awful. I just saying it sounds awful, but I think everybody's actually trying really hard. And so what we're trying to do is a couple things. One is, helping sites with, some kind of coaching on how to get back and how to streamline and be more efficient, and also adding sites because we have heard from some sites that they really can't, enroll more than 15 people. They just can't do it safely and be able to do everything they need to do to take care of the participants. So to address that, we're trying to open more sites. And we're also trying to give sites some more resources. We're trying to raise some funds for that so they can hire more staff. But please call Allison or Catherine so that they can help your friend get in. And then maybe, Sabrina, you could maybe talk about why we have the different outcome measures and biomarkers, which are perhaps causing more burden, but are also important.
Absolutely. So yeah, so there's sort of, we do collect these biosamples that are so important for us for two reasons, really. Number one, to better understand the effect of that particular drug. So in other words, it can give us more information to tell if the drug is doing things like engaging the target that's intending to engage, or having additional effects on important biological parameters. So that's one reason. And the other reason is that as part of this trial, we can also do additional studies to learn more about ALS in general. So that's important. So it's not just about testing the drugs, which is obviously the first goal, but it's also about being able to leverage the central infrastructure and the shared placebo to learn more about ALS, to do things like, for example, understanding if a certain group responds better, if there are certain characteristics associated with genetics or other baseline characteristics that make somebody a better fit for a particular molecule or another. So again, there's a lot of science that will come out of this.
So there was a question that came in advance about whether enrollment is on schedule, and is the addition of more regimens slowing down the schedule? And I might take the first stab at that. So we are on schedule. I mean, it's hard to make exact predictions because COVID really threw a wrench in all clinical trials and continues to be an issue with supplies, in particular around tubes for blood collection and urine collection. It's affecting every trial in this country and every disease. So, but I think it is on schedule. And when you add a regimen, it does obviously take some of the participants, but it also benefits the whole getting answers to all 4 of the drugs. So by adding regimen D when we did, means that regimen D can share all the data from regimens A, B, and C, so that they will get answers again to 4. But we have decided that we will wait to add regimen E and F until we're done with enrollment with A through C, at least. But then E and F can overlap with D, and they can share data to be very efficient. So
Mary, I can just add a little bit
please.
on that. At the end of the year, we had a lot of enthusiasm on enrolling. When we went through the holidays, it seemed that it was a little slower at that time. We noticed in the last 2 months that it picked up again, and probably stronger than it was at the beginning. We enrolled 1 today, but we already have 4 people to be enrolled and about 5 other people that are calling us and talking. So it seems that something happened after that, the energy sort of built up again. So it seems to me that it's going to pick up again from just its perception. Not that I see your numbers, but I think at least locally it's not slowing down. So I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the COVID surge too in the holidays kind of slowed down, and then now it's picking up again. But we're on track, and it's also really important that people are staying in the study. So retention's really good, and the data quality is really good, because the last thing you want to do is enroll really fast, but then you don't have good data, or your sites are overwhelmed, or people are leaving the trial, and then you don't get the answers you need. So it's going very well, and again, we're really appreciative of everybody who's being part of these studies. That's how we're going to find the treatments.
If I add, Mary?
No, please go ahead. I was just trying to get through the questions, but you add, and then we'll go through the questions.
Just simply why people stay, I think, and I don't know, there's obviously a quarter that are in placebo, but the majority of people they're not experiencing serious side effects as far as I can see the whole group. So none of these drugs appear to be very toxic in any way. They're okay to stay. And I think everybody's looking forward to go to the open label and be 100% to be on it. And I think those 2 things are really encouraging to stay on the study.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, absolutely. I just wish we could have clone you for all 52 sites. No, I mean, you're really enrolling so well, and you figured out how to do it. And that's what we need all the sites to figure out. So a couple quick questions. When the HEALEY does the data analysis after readout, will you break it down, the responder cohorts by ethnicity? Sabrina?
So we do have information on ethnicity and race on everyone. That's part of our demographics assessment. So we will report on those. Whether there are groups that respond more, again, that's part of our learning, the learning that we're going to do.
This is a tough question, and I think we're going to have a whole statistical talk on it, but I'll ask you both to maybe answer this one. Can you explain why the FDA won't let us use the PROACT database for natural history instead of placebo? Isn't 10,000 samples sufficient statistically?
Well, I mean, I can start. I'm certainly not a statistician or mathematician, but what I can say is that it's not just a matter of size. In other words, it's not that 10,000 is or sufficient or not. It's more a matter of the comparability to current trials. So for example, the data in PROACT, by definition, they've been accumulated over time. And so there are temporal trends, for example, and all these trials were done with very specific criteria. So unfortunately, it's not possible to completely compare for a definitive answer. I would say PROACT is incredibly helpful for statistical modeling and for generating questions and for generating ideas and ways to better design the trials. However, at this stage, again, it would be hard to use it for a confirmatory trial where you're definitely trying to determine if a drug is effective or not in that particular population that you are enrolling now, as opposed to, years ago or with different criteria.
Anything to add, Eduardo? Or?
Yeah, I will go back into the trial. I think the design that you come up with the patient's participation, this is the best, almost the best I ever seen, in the sense that just a very small percentage of patients are going to go on placebo, but only for the first 24 weeks. So it's just a very short period. You end up in the open label on drug all the time. So it's a 6 months, and it's only a small percentage. Now, a quarter of patients will go there. So it has been minimized to the extent of almost nothing to go on placebo. And granted, a few patients will go on placebo, but the chances of being on drug is very high in the first 6 months, and it's 100% after that. So you almost, I don't know, you guys figured it out to minimize the chance of placebo on the study. And at the same time, it has all the robust data you need to have the FDA to approve these drugs, because it's a requirement by the government to have that placebo arm.
Yeah, thank you. The good news is now we're asking upfront all the companies to provide their data after their trials are done to PROACT. So we keep growing that and keep getting current data and keep learning from that. So, well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for being part of the research. And Eduardo, thank you for also joining us and for everything you're doing for people with ALS and your friendship.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.